Story 1. I have been with the company, which employs over 10,000 people, for 4 years. Last year, I relocated to another country and switched to a fully remote position by transferring to a different department. I had enjoyed my previous role immensely, both for the nature of the work and the opportunities for learning and growth it provided. However, since my previous position did not offer the possibility of remote work, I chose to make the change. The new team I joined was small, consisting of only 4 people, including the manager. Upon joining, I took it upon myself to organize the team's chaotic workflow into a structured strategy and roadmap to ensure we could complete outstanding tasks and requests effectively. My manager at the time was largely ineffective, though we got along fine as he allowed me to handle things independently. Unfortunately, there were certain types of requests and changes that required approval from higher-ups, which only my manager could facilitate. Despite forwarding these requests for approval or feedback, none of them progressed during my time there. Repeated discussions in one-on-one and team meetings about the backlog yielded no results, as approvals were perpetually delayed. Within the first few months, I completed all tasks within my authority, helped colleagues with their work, and even supported other teams when they needed assistance. 3 months after I joined, my manager was promoted and hired a replacement, who began 3 months later and reported directly to my previous manager. By that time, I had shifted my focus to supporting other teams, as I had no new tasks or approvals to work on within my team. During the onboarding of the new manager, I gave them time to adjust and understand the complexities of the environment. However, after another 3 months of waiting and observing their working style, I realized they were unlikely to make meaningful progress. At that point, I had been in the team for 9 months, had completed all my work, and had onboarded my new manager, while continuing to assist my colleagues. Throughout this period, I consistently informed my manager that I had no work to do unless approvals were granted or new tasks were assigned. I repeatedly requested escalation for any critical tasks, but nothing changed. 2 months ago, my manager became frustrated during a meeting and instructed me to stop requesting approvals and simply wait for feedback or new assignments. I followed up with an email to document this directive and received confirmation to wait for further instructions. Since then, I have adhered to these instructions, participating only in weekly team meetings where I have no updates to provide. I also stopped assisting other teams, as my manager rejected any requests for my help unless they were routed directly through them. As a result, I now spend my time waiting, with no tasks to complete, while being paid. I've taken steps to document the situation. My manager's boss, who previously managed the team, is fully aware of the circumstances. I have escalated the issue to senior leadership, including the Chief Executive Officer and the Chief Technology Officer, and provided detailed follow-up emails listing all outstanding items, some of which require their direct approval. While they acknowledge the situation, it appears to be a low priority for them at the moment. To ensure accountability, I've saved all relevant evidence in a shared team space and maintain a personal copy, both of which I keep updated whenever new developments arise. The fallout has been notable. 1 team member resigned last month, and another is actively seeking a new job. It's worth mentioning that there is a significant age gap between me and the other 2 team members. They are relatively early in their careers and seeking more experience, while our manager is in their early 60s and likely nearing retirement. Yesterday, we had an impromptu team meeting without the manager. We laughed at the absurdity of the situation, but also expressed sadness at being unable to fully utilize our skills. Personally, I've decided to ride this wave and see how it unfolds. After all, who wouldn't appreciate being paid while having no actual work to do? Story 2. I went to middle school in the early 2010s, right before smartphones really took off. I got my first phone right before starting 6th grade. It was a slide phone with a pay-as-you-go plan that cost 10 cents per minute for calls and per text message sent or received. Worse yet, sending or receiving photos cost 25 cents each. It was very expensive, and my parents only gave me $100 a year for this. If I exceeded the amount, I had to cover the rest with my limited birthday and Christmas money I had. Fortunately, most of my friends were good about helping me preserve the balance. They would call, and I'd let the call drop, but immediately call back on a landline so it wouldn't count as a call, and they'd email me or message me on Skype for most things. Everything was good until Derek joined the group in 7th grade. At first we thought he was funny, but we quickly got fed up with him as he was very unpleasant and exhibited many antisocial behaviors. He started drama within the friend group and also caused issues between us and other kids outside of the group. He was manipulative and always played the victim when others rightfully called him out on his nonsense. And he knew how to charm parents, so getting rid of him was easier said than done. He was the one friend who didn't respect my phone situation. He very frequently texted me dumb memes, even though I told him multiple times to just email or Skype them to me instead, since picture text messages cost 25 cents each. Unfortunately, blocking phone numbers was a feature that was unavailable for this pay-as-you-go plan, so there was nothing I could do as he spammed my phone. One day he got mad at me for some reason and spammed my phone with memes. He must have sent me over 100 lolcats over text. He kept sending them until I lost service since my phone balance was depleted. I had lost the $40 remaining in my account as a result. I was extremely pissed and demanded that he pay me the $40 he had cost me, and he refused and said it wasn't his problem. I got home from school really upset and told my dad about the situation, expecting him to go and tear Derek's mother a new one and demand the money, but my dad said that it wasn't worth the battle. I even asked him about a small claims court, but he said that not all battles are worth fighting, and that the effort wasn't worth $40. He took me to the carrier store and loaded $50 onto the phone. The carrier changed my phone number, and they managed to block Derek's number. They had initially said that blocking phone numbers wasn't possible with this plan, but my dad insisted and would not leave the store until they did it. I was extremely paranoid about my phone number being leaked and other kids spamming it to screw with me. Fortunately, my parents got iPhones that summer and got me one too, and the new family plan had an unlimited text plan. Nonetheless, I was pissed at the $40 he essentially stole from me out of malice. Fortunately, not too long after, there was a big blowout between Derek and the rest of the friend group at the end of the school year, and we permanently kicked him out of the group. He was an outcast the following year in 8th grade. Nobody was tolerating his nonsense anymore, and he changed schools the year after, and we never heard from him again. Fast forward to a few years ago, I was back home for a few months between graduating college and starting a new job on the other side of the country. I went out to some garage sales one Saturday morning, and I ended up at Derek's house. I recognized his mother, but I don't think she recognized me. I guess glasses and a beard is all you need. I noticed some Pokemon napkins out for sale, and when I picked them up to look at them, Derek's mom said that her son had been obsessed with Pokemon for his whole life, and that she was tired of Pokemon stuff occupying her home for so many years. I said that these napkins were for my younger cousin who is really into Pokemon, and asked if she had any more Pokemon stuff. She said she didn't know people were still into that, and that there were a few boxes in the attic with her son's old stuff. She actually took me inside the house, which I never imagined I'd set foot inside ever again, and let me climb up the attic ladder and take down several large boxes to look through. The first one had Christmas ornaments in it and other junk, but I freaked out inside when she opened a box jam-packed with Pokemon video games in the original boxes, though I kept my cool on the outside. The whole reason I had agreed to go inside in the first place was because I was holding out hope of this exact scenario happening. See, I knew Derek was obsessed with Pokemon. Our friend group liked Pokemon back in the day, even when other kids thought it wasn't cool. But Derek was on a whole different level. He bragged about his Pokemon collection all the time. At the time he had every single main series game in the original box, and in mint condition, as he always had to add in. I went to his house once, and he was showing me his collection. He yelled at me for touching one of the games. Nobody was allowed to touch them except him. He had many older Nintendo games in excellent condition, but Pokemon was his favorite. He had had a couple of incidents with his mom damaging or throwing away his things, It wasn't out of malice, but just ignorance, as she didn't think the games or collectibles had any value. Fast forward into the present day. I was thinking about this when I asked his mother if she had any other Pokémon stuff. She ended up bringing out the motherlode. We opened all of the boxes she had me bring down. Within the boxes, there was the beloved collection of Pokémon games, all very well preserved, as well as several Nintendo consoles, hundreds of games, 24 binders full of Pokémon cards, and there was also a box of many Lego sets with the original boxes and everything, with many old Star Wars sets. When I saw Jango Fett, I knew I struck gold. I told her that I liked old Legos as well, and asked her how much for the 5 boxes of games, cards, and Lego sets, and she thought for a second and said $100 a box, or $400 for all 5. I told her I would take it all and hauled myself to get to an ATM. I loaded the 5 boxes into my dad's truck and immediately drove home. I knew there was potentially tens of thousands of dollars of goods here. This was the score of a lifetime, and I finally felt vindicated for the $40 Derek had taken from me all those years ago. I ended up giving all the stuff to my uncle, who's a hobbyist eBay reseller. He offered to sell it all. He was willing to go through the effort and sell everything individually. And despite my insistence, he said he wouldn't take more than a 10% cut of the profits after all fees and taxes. We went through and logged every single item along with the estimated value, and the total of the whole lot was about $40,000. 40,000 was a poetic number since this was 1,000x the value of what Derek stole from me all those years ago. My uncle sold most of the lot before the end of the summer and ended up writing me a check. Though it was considerably less than $40,000, it was still a life-changing amount of money for me. I was able to pay off my remaining student loans and put the rest towards a down payment on a new car. Story 3. It was a night that promised excitement, the kind you circle on your calendar months in advance. My friends and I had been looking forward to the concert for ages. The tickets a splurge we justified as a treat to ourselves for surviving another semester of college. The air buzzed with anticipation as we joined the sea of fans streaming into the venue, our spirits as high as the skyscrapers that framed the evening sky. As the opening act took the stage, the energy was infectious, with every note played echoing our own pulse. Between acts, we'd dart to the concession stand for overpriced snacks, or to the restrooms to avoid missing any part of the main event. It was during one of these quick bathroom trips that my story took an unexpected turn. There I was, in the cramped stall, just about to head back, when I heard the click of a neighboring stall unlocking. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a woman, let's call her Karen, for the sake of the story, eyeing me strangely through the small gap in the stall door. I brushed off the odd feeling, attributing it to the general weirdness of public restrooms. As I washed my hands, I noticed Karen hovering a bit too close for comfort. My bag, momentarily left unguarded on the counter, seemed to draw her interest. Before I could process her intentions, she made a swift move for it. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" I confronted her, my voice rising above the bathroom's ambient noise. "Oh, I thought this was my bag, dear. Easy mistake," Karen replied, her voice dripping with a condescension that did nothing to mask her lie. Clearly, it was no mistake. My bag was a unique patchwork design, a birthday gift from my sister, and not easily confused with the generic purses that populated most stores. "That's not going to fly. I saw you deliberately reach for my bag," I retorted, the disbelief and anger mounting with each word. Karen scoffed, her earlier faux politeness crumbling away. "Well, if you were more careful with your things, this wouldn't happen. You young people are so careless." The audacity of her words struck me. Not only was she attempting to steal from me, but now she was trying to blame me for her actions. The situation escalated quickly as voices raised, attracting the attention of others in the restroom. A couple of bystanders came over, asking if everything was all right. Karen, sensing the tide turning against her, decided to play the victim. "This girl is accusing me of trying to steal her bag. Can you believe it? I was just trying to help," she exclaimed, looking for any shred of sympathy. One of the bystanders, a woman probably in her late 20s, eyed Karen skeptically. I saw the whole thing. You definitely went for her bag. Why don't we just wait for security to sort this out? Karen's face blanched at the mention of security. It seemed the last thing she wanted was for this to escalate further, but it was too late. Someone had already alerted venue security, and within minutes, a couple of officers were at the scene, asking for our versions of the story. The security team listened patiently, gathering statements from me, Karen, and the witnesses. It became clear to them, and everyone else gathered, that Karen had attempted to take something that wasn't hers. "I'm going to have to ask you to come with us," one of the officers said to Karen, his tone leaving no room for argument. "But I didn't do anything wrong. She's lying," Karen protested, her voice a mix of desperation and indignation. The evidence, however, was not in her favor. The witnesses corroborated my story, and the security footage from the hallway leading into the restrooms showed Karen eyeing me and following me in. They escorted Karen away while she's screaming. The concert, which had started as a carefree escape, had taken a detour into the surreal. My friends, having caught wind of the situation, rushed to my side, their concern quickly turning into outrage as I recounted the events. The rest of the night passed in a blur. The concert ended on a high note, the main act delivering a performance that momentarily swept away the evening's earlier drama. In the days that followed, I learned that Karen was charged with attempted theft. It turned out this wasn't her first attempt at such an act, but thanks to the quick actions of those around me, it would hopefully be her last for a while. Story 4. I worked at a charcoal chicken joint in a small shopping center with about 10 stores in it. The shopping center had a public bathroom on the other side. This is obviously run by center management and the cleaners they hire, and not by our chicken shop, which is on the other side of the complex and does not have a bathroom. A lady comes in with her baby and is absolutely livid. I'm talking red with rage. It was just me working there because my coworker and manager called in sick for the day, so I was trying to think back to any mistakes I may have made and came up empty. She finally gets to the counter and starts yelling, telling me I should be ashamed of myself. I ask her what's wrong and say I can rectify the issue. I just need her to calm down and tell me the problem. Apparently she had gone to use the parent bathroom with her baby, and there was urine on the floor and baby stuff on the change table, and I need to go and clean it right this minute, before someone gets AIDS, and because her baby needs a change. I tell her, sorry, but I just work in the chicken shop. The public complex bathrooms are not my responsibility. I tell her she needs to knock on the cleaner's door, opposite the bathroom, and they will help. She was huffing about me, wasting her time, and being entitled, but leaves to go to the cleaner's room. At this point I think it's all over, but no. About 3 minutes later she comes back even more livid than before and yells, "The cleaner isn't answering, you need to do it now." I tell her I'm sorry, but I do not know where the cleaner is. I do not work under the same management, and again, the bathroom is not my responsibility. She keeps unintelligibly screaming things, so I left to get our record book out back and look at the emergency contacts to find the center manager. I apologized to the lady to try and get her to calm down and offer to call the center manager to see what can be done. I go out back to make the call, and the manager picks up, and I explain to her I've got a lady screaming at me about a dirty bathroom, and I'm working my shift alone and don't know what to do other than to call. She tells me she will call her cleaner and see what's up. She rings back to tell me the other cleaner didn't show up for his shift, and the second cleaner is on break. I hang up and tell the lady that the cleaner will be back within 30 minutes, or she can go to the McDonald's across the street, who also has a change table. This was not good enough for her. She reaches behind the counter for a bottle of cleaning spray and literally walks behind the counter to look out the back where she sees a mop. I'm standing there, dumbfounded, processing the fact she just walked behind the counter, and she thrusts the mop bucket and spray at me and tells me if the cleaner is not here, it's my responsibility to go and mop it up. I tell her to get out of the kitchen immediately, or I'll call the police, and she stands there, not moving, telling me not until I clean it up. At this point I'm like, what the hell, and tell her, If your baby can't wait half an hour or the car ride home, go to the McDonald's. I am not cleaning it. My job is to cook fries and chicken and not to clean the amenities of an establishment I do not work for. She yells no, and so I threaten the police again. She stands there as if to call my bluff, but I reach for the phone and start dialing. She walks out the door, yelling, and I think it's finally done now. Thank God. 10 minutes later, she shows up with the cops saying I threatened her and her baby. I just gave the cops my statement and the video footage complete with audio, and they arrested her for trespassing. That was probably the most insane shift I've worked. Keep in mind, whilst we were not busy at the time, there were customers trying to order and food being cooked the whole time. Story 5. So this is another story from the world of customer service and Burger King. So our characters are myself, my coworker who I will call Barbie, and the villain of this piece, Jerkface. Now let me start by saying I'm fine with people who can break the script on customer service on either side, and I'm all for looking for love wherever you want. But know that when she says no, she means it. Also, this guy was so creepy, he'd give online incels a run for their money. So I was in charge of babysitting the newbies for the day, as we just had a fresh crop of them whisk in. The rate of retention was low, and I was perhaps the one guy who worked on all areas at some point, so had to train everyone. One newbie was Barbie. She was 16 and as much of a Barbie girl as you can get, complete with the shiny blonde hair and bubbly personality. She was on the till to my right, and in comes Ya. So she is busy taking his order when all of a sudden he decides to ask her for her number. Now I'm sure that she's used to it, as she brushed it off and just said, "Sorry, I'm seeing someone. So would you like your meal large?" "Nah, I give it, I don't buy it," Ya said, as if he could impress her with his vulgarity. "Okay, so any sides?" she asked. She wasn't going to break from the script purely out of discomfort, I think. At this point I was finished with my customer and turned my attention on this guy. "Depends, can I have you as my side? I'd love to make a meal out of you," Ya told her. The sheer cringe was uncomfortable for all of us except him. "You need me to step in?" I asked her. "I'm okay, but can you stay near?" she asked. "No worries," I told her. "Is this your boyfriend?" Ya asked her. "No, but you're making me feel uncomfortable. You're like 10 years older than me and you're creeping on me," she told him. I think that she was hoping he would just realize what he was doing and give up. No such luck. "Honey, I'm your customer. This is part of customer service, so just give me your number and my order and I'll come by later to pick you up," he replied. The sheer entitled attitude towards her was starting to annoy me and her. "Sir, I'm just going to be blunt with you. I'm not going to allow her to deal with you any further. You're going to either finish your order with me and it'll be a takeaway, or you can leave now," I said. Barbie quickly took a step back from the till and let me take her place. "Hey, that's not cool. We're both guys here. No blocking me, man," Yo exclaimed. He was actually angry because I wouldn't let him hit on her. I told Barbie to go into the kitchen and grab a drink of water or something while I dealt with him. "I honestly don't care if you think because we're both guys you're entitled to make my front counter team uncomfortable. You have a right to order food from here for now. If you continue with this behavior, I'll simply have you leave," I told him, hoping that my stern voice was enough to get him to focus. It was not. So this guy continued with his order for a moment before redirecting his attention to Barbie, who had just popped her head out of the kitchen to see if she was in the clear, and he clicked on immediately when he noticed her. "Why can't you just take my order and give me your number? All I want to do is make you happy," he shouted at her. She immediately fled as the manager on shift came out of the dry store after hearing the commotion. I immediately signaled them to call the security staff for the shopping center before turning back to the customer. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave now, as I don't feel comfortable with you even being in the same place as my colleague. Now please leave. I'm going to cancel off everything for your order, and you won't be served any further by any colleague here," I informed him. "I'm not leaving until I get her number. Do you even know who I am?" he said, as if knowing who he was would change my opinion on him. "No, but you're not harassing my colleague for her number, so you can act like a big man. You look closer to my age than hers, and so you should know that acting like this is inappropriate. I have no problems with a guy asking a girl for her number, but when she says no, it means no, I explained to him. Since when? When a witch says no, you simply pay her more money. It's the same here. When she says no, you keep asking until she says yes, he replied, as if this means he's in the right all of a sudden. A moment later, security just walked in. The manager walked out to point out the customer who was still irate because he couldn't get a girl's number. I'd already canceled his order on the tills, but he was still refusing to leave until he got her number. Security just walked behind him and tapped him on the shoulder. "Sir, you'll have to come with us," the security guard said. "But she hasn't given me her number yet," he told them. "And she won't." "Now please leave," I told him. With this, he finally admitted defeat and skulked away. I don't know what made him think that he was entitled to her, but I'm just glad that she was protected properly. You can ask a girl out, but you can't harass her if she says no. When Barbie left that day, she was driven home by one of the female members of staff who finished at the same time. She actually came back as well, and I made sure that she was okay to keep working on the tills before I put her back on them that day. I might call her Barbie, but she was a boss Barbie if anything. Good on her for not letting him shake her. I am a single bachelor myself, and I understand that flirting is okay so long as you don't act like an entitled jerkface and mistreat someone who isn't interested. Also, as a rule of thumb, when you're 25 plus, don't even bother hitting on a girl who's 16 and actually looks younger due to her baby face. That's just creepy. My rule of thumb with age range is normally 6 years younger to 6 years higher. If you have a different one, that's fine, but don't be that creepy. I don't know what people's opinions are on sexual harassment on here, but I hope that you all appreciate that you should never act like this to anyone ever. No one is entitled to date anyone. It's a privilege to have a partner in love and life, no matter how long it lasts. Anyone who needs assistance with dealing with any form of stalking, domestic abuse, sexual violence, harassment in the UK, I will post a couple of links to groups that helps with this sort of issue. Story 6. In 2018, I lived in Southern California while I was finishing up graduate school. Uber was more popular than ever, and given how spread out California is, in general, was an easy side hustle to shuttle people back and forth. However, I only did it for a little while because I'm not really the most patient person and eventually got tired of people's nonsense and attitudes. One of the common tactics for customers looking to screw a driver was to cancel their rides in the middle of the trip to avoid paying the fare. They would often say how they did it accidentally, and then ask me if I could just finish the trip since we were basically there anyways. This happened to me 3 times. The first 2 times, I pulled over and told them to get out of my car, to which they complied, albeit they called me several names and threatened to kill me. The third time is the subject of this post. It was about 4:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday when I decided to log on and catch some fares. Most people go into the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays and are looking to get rides home between 4 and 5 p.m. to beat the traffic. At this point, I should mention that I was living in San Diego. If you know the area, you'd know that many people work in the city and live in the outer areas because it's cheaper. On the day of the event, oh yes, it was an event, I picked up a middle-aged girl who was a student at the local community college downtown. Although she was in community college, I could tell she had money by the way she dressed and where she was going, La Jolla. She gets in my car and starts to make a conversation with me. I am driving through town, and as I am about to get on the highway, I hear the cancellation ding. I pulled over to a parking lot and let her know that she canceled the ride and I could not drive her until she rebooked it. She gave me the "it was an accident" excuse. I told her not a problem and to just rebook the route. Well, at this point, all those people I told you about earlier had just got off of work, and we were in what I call the power hour of maximum surge pricing. La Jolla is like 25-40 minutes from downtown San Diego depending on traffic. I looked, and the trip would have cost her $70. She told me that she wasn't going to pay for that. I said fine, and I asked that she exit my vehicle. She refused and told me to take her home like I was her chauffeur. At this point, I was pissed and wouldn't have done it, even if she gave me $100 cash. I didn't really need the money. I asked her politely again. She refused. I had never really gotten to this point before. The other two people were guys, and I would have had no qualms about yanking their butts out by force and beating them in the middle of the highway. However, that wouldn't have been a good look in this situation. I thought about going to the police given we were 3 blocks from the headquarters, but I wanted her to feel the burn. Cue malicious compliance. I asked her if she wanted a free ride. She suddenly perked up and said, "I knew you'd come around. You are such a nice guy." I said buckle up and we got on Interstate 5. Here is the part where I tell you that San Diego is 16 miles from the Mexican border. I also keep my passport in my glove compartment because I did volunteer work in Rosarito every so often. We were about 4 minutes into the ride when she asked where we were going. I turned around and told her, "I'm going to Tijuana and I'm glad you could join me. I hope you brought your passport." At first, she didn't think I was serious, but by exit 4 she started to panic. I told her she was welcome to get out at any time, but she needed to make a decision soon because after we passed exit 1 there was no turning back. I also told her that I wasn't taking her back. Well, she got the message and pleaded for me to pull over. I pulled over and dropped her off at the outlet mall in San Isidro at the border. Just for giggles, I checked the Uber rate from the mall to La Jolla, and the cheapest rate was $1.87 for a pool ride. I didn't make any money that night, but that was the richest experience I had while being a rideshare driver. I stopped about 1 month later and sold my car. Edit. For those concerned that I was going to kidnap this chick, I communicated with both Uber support and a few of my friends to let them know she would not get out of my car after being asked repeatedly prior to driving towards the border. I covered my bases.